Peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of Boss Hijabipreneur. Women often appear to suffer from the misconception that to be successful in business or accepted in society, they have to diminish or denounce their faith or beliefs. As a business coach, I have encountered women cross culturally who face internal conflict regarding their religious identity, maintaining their family roles, and being their most authentic selves. I developed this podcast to help guide them back to reclaiming their faith, better define their Islamic roles so they can own their identity, live their absolute best life, and be a powerhouse in business. Welcome back to the Bossy Jabbypreneur podcast, episode 50, Back to the Office or Quit. Hold on tight and grab your pen and paper. This episode is going to be a good one, inshallah. This week, many of the women that follow my page and some that are in my group coaching classes, and even a woman that I met in the elevator, have received news that they will be returning to work later this month or next month. Some employers have communicated their return to work plan. Some will return to the office full time, others will remain fully remote, while others have adopted a hybrid return to work plan. I remember speaking to the woman on the elevator, and she was not happy about having to return to work. Mentally, she had become accustomed to, I start work this time, I do work this time, I take a break at this time, and just having that flexibility. And so, with, some returning full time, some returning fully remote, some, some people staying fully remote, and then some adopting a hybrid return. It's going to be, a tough transition for some, and then, a seamless transition for others. 1 week off and 1 week on, working remote 2 to 3 days a week, and in the office the rest of the days. That may be your particular scenario. Whatever your scenario is, I would love to hear from you. So when this podcast airs, you can either leave a comment on the podcast. I hang around, you guys know, on IG. You're more than welcome to DM me and just let me know how things are going, what your thoughts are, etc. So, is it time to open the office, or has it come to the time where the office is about to reopen? Have you received that news? So, after working from home for nearly a year, or in many cases over a year for many people, many employees want to get back to the office, believe it or not. In fact, 94% of employees are ready to return to work, according to Envoy's 2020 research survey. How often they want to work, and go back in the office, we talked about a little bit earlier, and it is a bit less clear than the fact that, they're saying, yes, I want to get back to work. But flexibility is not only expected from, the employee perspective, and in some cases, the employer perspective, but, the consensus is, hey, we want to return to work, but we've got to figure some things out. Some of it from a mental health standpoint, some of it from an actual health, standpoint. How is this going to play out? Is there a strategic plan in place of, do you have cubicles? Is there separation? How is the office cleaned? If there is an employee that, we find out, ends up having, COVID, how do we handle those particular scenarios to keep the rest of the employees safe? So many things that employers themselves have to think about. And I'm sure they're going to ask their employees to be flexible, as this is something that is new for them and a space and a territory that they've never entered before. So, at the end of 2020, this survey was conducted by Envoy, and they found that only 6% prefer to work from home full time, and another 54% prefer a hybrid model. And I think for me, I spoke to my daughter, and not only are employees having to go back to work, but in some cases many students have either started going back to school, or in September they will go back to school. And so my daughter and I had this conversation, and even she talked about a hybrid. I would like to go to school, maybe 2 days a week, and then be home for 3 days. So even the kids, even their mental health, their mental state, it's a transition. So I think that there's a lot of flexibility that needs to happen no matter what your scenario is. And so from my own conversations with women, there is a general consensus that returning to work after almost an 18-month hiatus is not favorable from a mental health standpoint. I think that, a lot of these, insurance providers, a lot of these employers, I think they need to take a look at, how are they taking care of their employees' mental health? I think that that's going to be a huge concern, both from, making a transition from kind of doing things my way by working at home remotely versus now having to go back in and having to report. Also, being at home, being in a safe haven, maybe, being at work caused anxiety pandemic. And so how do we help these, employees transition back into the workforce, whether it's full-time, part-time, whatever the case may be. And some have financially benefited from being at home. And so now, they may have to go back to, paying for gas. They may have to go back if they, commute, using public transportation. They may have to go back to paying for those different types of things that they're not reimbursed for, right? And so, they have financially seen, a surplus, being at home, being able to save more money due to less of their income, like I said, spent on commuting, even lunch, hair and nails. So, there's an image that we as women we have to keep up. So, we may spend, me personally, I'm a hijabi, so maybe I spend more money on hijabs, when I am going to different conferences or I'm asked to speak at different things. I have to, present an image. I may need a new outfit every single time that, I deliver a presentation or whatever the case may be. And so, through the pandemic, I saved, maybe a few hundred, maybe even thousands of dollars, or not having to, necessarily have that same type of upkeep, a mani pedi once a month versus weekly, when I'm traveling to different places. So just thinking about that, that people were able to save money, commuting, lunch, hair, nails, and their wardrobe. Others have had the time to spend with their children, and in many cases, it has brought families closer together. And returning to work would mean that that all ends. While for some, returning to work also means their children may be returning to school. And with that return, some of the socializing, elements, return that they were missing, that time away from work and school. And so there's a positive benefit for it, especially for those that are missing, that social element that they had pre-pandemic. So there are some positives and of course some negatives. And from these responses, I can tell that there are mixed emotions, and I'm sure that this will be a continuous process. So pros and cons to every scenario. The common thread that I keep hearing, however, is that women are looking to take more control over their lives and what they want. Some have created a return to work plan, adopting a hybrid work schedule, or negotiating the ability to work 100% remote. Go, girl, go. Negotiating salaries for higher pay, and so much more. I just want to say kudos to all of you for speaking up and advocating for yourself. We'll be right back after this brief break to learn the downside of remote work. The downside of remote work. The downside of many employees wanting to work remotely impacts businesses who own brick and mortar stores or own or rent office locations, physical office locations. Who will work in their stores? Who will operate the computers, answer the phones? Where is the accountability? How do you measure progress? For businesses who had a hybrid plan prior to COVID-19, the shift may not be that drastic. But for those who were 100% in person, it may be like pulling teeth to get an employee to return to work. What do you do in that instance? There is no short or cookie cutter answer, and I believe that this, particular conversation needs to be had between the employer and the employee. And I think that there may need to be, scenarios where that look different. There may have to be flexible scenarios where, one employee, you could have 10 employees all working the same type of job, but maybe one employee gets to do this and then another employee gets to do that. And I think this goes back to the beginning half of this conversation where we were talking about the mental health. Right. So we have to take the mental health of the employee into account, as well as their output, as well as them, their productivity when they're showing up, to work. So, one of the things that I know, there's no a short or cookie cutter answer, of course. So, one of the suggestions that I have for brick and mortar retail locations, and I've even told some of my clients who own brick and mortar retail locations, they're having trouble, finding help. I think there was, like a news report that I saw, like in brief, that was talking about, that employers are looking to hire, seasonal help, or even looking to hire, employees to just work the store. They're in some cases they're at bare bones right now, as far as who is working in their stores. And so how do you what can you do to entice an applicant, right, to want to come and work for you. And I will say that this is going to be a tough road ahead, and it's going to take some time. From what I understand, some of the unemployment benefits and some of the additional, kicks that, people were getting, or the boost that people were getting financially, will begin to run out, say in September, in the fall sometime, right? And, of course, that, remains to be seen. Things can change at any moment, as, COVID-19, this pandemic has been, unpredictable. So, we kind of have to play it by ear. But, I think, making sure that you're diligent in promoting the fact that you have, vacancies, at your particular, retail location. If you are a business, being diligent about, saying this is what we have. And then when when you front face that applicant, being flexible, maybe being flexible with, how they, show up to work. So if we are talking about an office location, again, maybe it's hybrid. If we are talking about a brick and mortar retail location, maybe your store operates at reduced hours for now. Maybe you slow pace it. Maybe you're open from this time to this time, and maybe your store is only open 4 or 5 hours a day versus maybe the 12 hours that it was open pre-pandemic. Create new jobs that focus more on customer support and fulfillment behind the scenes than the front-facing client, job that employee will need to front face a client, right? So as restrictions are lifted, you can increase your in-store hours. Increase it by 1 hour, every single, month or something like that. Increase your store hours by 1 hour until, you're able to operate fully. The same again applies to businesses who rely on employees showing up to work from a team building and productivity standpoint. Let's face it, if an employee's computer or internet connection goes down at home, that may result in 1 to 2 days or more of work and productivity loss. There are so many variables. You could also run into, a situation where, maybe you have an employee who, when they're, under supervision, they work better. And, at home, they're kind of, suffering, and, things are going by the wayside. Again, goes back to having those individual conversations and saying to an employee, "Hey, how do you work? What does work look like for you? And when do you think you're most productive? Do you think that you're most productive at home? Do you think that you're most productive when you are in a controlled, so to speak, environment?" And have that conversation with each employee. The reality is we will have to be very flexible during this time. And so I wanted to pivot the conversation a little bit and, talk about, some of the successes, talk about, the areas where, we've seen, some positive, things come out. And I will tell you, entrepreneurship, 2020, we saw more businesses, on the rise. We saw more businesses, open up. And so, this pandemic has seen more open businesses during any time since the Great Depression, to the tune of 3.4 million. When I saw this, I was in shock. 3.4 million new applications in 2020. New business applications have surpassed 2019's numbers. And this particular information is as of December of 2020. So I am sure 2021, we're still seeing this upward trend. So overall growth was triggered immediately following the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, so that's the CARES Act, signed into law on March 27th. I just want to say, again, congratulations. It sounds like you ladies were ready to take action then, and many of you have already celebrated your 1 year business anniversary. So, congratulations to all of you once again. So, of businesses opened in 2020, approximately one third, and that's about 1.26 million of those businesses, are considered high propensity businesses, meaning that they have a solid plan in place. They have a plan in place for employees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? While this is a downward trend from the year before, I think that the fact that it's still 1.26 million that are considered high propensity businesses in the middle of a pandemic, I feel that that's a win. According to a recent article on Small Business Trends, the number of weekly business applications for non-store retailers grew by 4 times. So that's again, I said non-store retailers grew by 4 times. So that's from 5,070 applications to 20,370 applications since March. In the first 13 weeks of 2020, an average of nearly 74,000 businesses applied for employer identification numbers. Most of you know those as EINs a week. From the following week through mid-October, EIN applications average was close to 89,000 applications a week. The week of July 12th saw the peak for business applications for non-store retailers. So this is online stores, and I'm going to talk about that in greater depth in just a moment. So in the following 10 weeks, so the week of July 12th saw the peak of business applications for non-store retailers. So in the following 10 weeks, business applications fell to an average of about 15,400 a week. Still, for me, and this is my personal opinion, I feel that that's still a win. So between the week of December 29th, 2019 and the week of March 15th, 2020, prior to the CARES Act, the average weekly applications for non-retail businesses was 6,600. Again, you see what I mean? That there's that number again. It's still a win. So from March 22nd, 2020 to October 3rd, 2020, the weekly average application was nearly 13,200 for non-store retail businesses. What is this telling you? This is telling you that more of you ladies, and the percentage of women-owned businesses is also on the rise. And so, what this is saying is that many of you understood that brick and mortar stores, there wasn't the business. In many cases, there were federal and city mandated laws, asking people to stay home, and certain types of businesses were not allowed to open. And so we saw that, but it doesn't mean that people don't still need the products. Many people who had, delivery services for food, offered some type of, delivery product on their own types of food, but they offered a delivery service for it. Things like DoorDash, Uber Eats, we saw those types of things on the rise. We saw those types of businesses, in that particular part of their business, on the rise during the pandemic. People weren't riding in Ubers because they didn't necessarily have any place to go, but they were ordering via Uber Eats. So an Uber, driver who was normally driving someone to work or to the airport then moved over and began delivering for Uber Eats, and things like DoorDash and those types of things, I'm sure, have seen an increase in the amount of deliveries that they had. And this created a job opportunity for many people while they were, possibly home and either jobless or, maybe, decreased hours due to the fact that they were not, in their location. Whatever your scenario is, there was something for everyone. This also meant that they understood the need. Hair care products. We didn't stop washing our hair during the pandemic. We didn't stop, doing mani pedis. We didn't even stop buying clothes. The types of clothes may have changed. So whereas, maybe we were on Zoom, we had, our weekly Zoom call and we had to be presentable, maybe we switched out our business suit or, a button up, top or blouse. Maybe we switched that for, some type of leisure, outfit. And so you saw, leisure like a lot of leisure and loungewear, you saw an increase in the amount of not only businesses that sold those types of products, but also the business that offered that as a product. Many different luxury brands, they began to offer their version of loungewear that could double as a Zoom outfit, right? And so many of you as women, many of you as listeners understood the need for creating a product that could be shipped to your consumer versus them having to come in and, receive their products. Even alcoholic beverages, the companies that got on the bandwagon quick, there were some companies that were already there and they were already doing this pre-pandemic. And I don't drink, but I just have to put it out there. Just in looking at the statistics, businesses that sold alcohol, they were able to continue to thrive without people having to physically come into their location because they were able to ship to their customer. Hair products, same thing. Those companies that were able to ship their products to their customers saw a huge influx. Even people in my space where I'm in the business education service, we saw an influx as well. More people wanted to understand how to start a business. More people wanted to understand how can they promote their businesses that were already in business. How can I promote my business if I'm not doing these in-person events, or I'm not doing these vending opportunities, in-person vending opportunities, etc. How can I promote my business in a way that I don't lose business and I can grow my business? And so you saw an influx of an increase actually in these areas, and so many more. So not just the retail, not just retail, many others saw an increase in their revenue at this time. So here's what drove the new business application numbers. I think that this is important for us to understand what drove this. And I think that this will help you to understand how little is needed for you to start a business or for you to even grow your business. How small of an investment is needed. And so the provision of the additional $600 weekly in unemployment insurance helped the personal savings rate of each person reach nearly 34% in April, the highest on record. Might have given some the financial room that they needed to set up a business. So, that additional income that they were receiving, from unemployment insurance, they were then able to put it into savings. And from there, they were then able to say, you know what, I can afford, the application fee to start my business. I can afford to buy the fabric that I need, to put out my first, fashion collection, hijab collection. I can afford, the materials that I need to recreate my, hair care line, whatever, your scenario is, right? And an additional incentive includes the tax provision that allows a deduction of up to 20% of qualified business income for owners of certain types of businesses. There were so many different types of tax breaks. There were so many different types of ways that you could, receive a large influx of, money. So you saw people with, the PPP loan and different types of grants and loans, became available, and many new or current business owners took advantage of them. Opening e-commerce shops, it was probably the most popular business in 2020. This included businesses such as, online shopping, mail order, and direct selling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of this sounds like great news, but is it time to quit? We'll be right back. Is it time to quit? Why am I telling you all of this? I'm sure many of you are thinking, all these statistics are great, but why is she telling me this? Why is this important now? As women, we are the caretakers of our home and children, and many of us are divorced or single parents, and or the sole provider. And if we are in a two-parent household, one income is simply not going to cut it. Especially, we saw this during the pandemic. We saw where, our food bill went up. We saw where, we had to have, certain things in place. Many people, generators, different things like that, power outages in some places. So many things, coming together at once. So, no matter your scenario, we need more control over our finances individually as women and collectively as a community so we can have more control over the trajectory of our lives and future generations. I think this year, this past, 2020, kind of even nudged me. So I'm already a full-time entrepreneur, but it even nudged me. Hey, what do you really want? And, if you are on the path to what you really want, do you need to hit, the accelerate button? Do you need to go a little bit harder, go a little bit faster, be more intentional? And the answer to all of those questions for me were yes. And I'm sure for many of you, the answer is yes as well. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. But as people of faith, not knowing what tomorrow will bring does not mean that we become complacent and we just sit and we just wait for, whatever is going to happen, right? We don't just sit and wait. It's like, there was this quote in this movie, Their Eyes Were Watching God, right? Get busy living or get busy dying. And so, we don't know when our expiration date is, right? And so, because we don't know when our expiration date is, we should still go hard in the paint no matter what's happening around us. In some cases, in some parts of the world, it looks like, the world is just, crumbling, on the four sides of us, right? But there is a saying that goes, even if it's the last, even if it's the end of times, to plant whatever seed. If you have a seed in your hand, to plant that seed. And so I go at life like that every single day. No matter if it seems like you've reached the end of your rope, no matter if it looks like the world is falling behind you. If there's a dream, if there's a goal, continue to go after it, continue to pursue it. If your goal is to, is if it's spiritual and you want to learn the Quran or whatever your book of choice is, don't stop because, oh, the world is ending, so, there's no hope. No, continue to pursue it. Imagine being rewarded for your intention to complete the Quran, even if you don't complete it, even if you're only on page one. Right? So imagine being rewarded for your intention because you made the intention and you continuously, went after it. Right? So, I want us to think about that. I want us to think about that as we go about, making our goals and thinking about what it is that we want for your life. As you're listening to this, maybe you're writing down, what your goals are. Think about actually achieving them. What would happen if you actually achieve them? And keep keep focus on what if I achieve it, what happens, right? Who benefits, what positivity comes out of me actually, going after pursuing my goals and then, essentially achieving them, inshallah, right? So, what we do as a community, what we do individually changes the trajectory of our lives and that of future generations. What we learn, how we live, what we can become is all reliant on our faith, first and foremost, and our finances. Many of the things that we want to do as a community of women, that we want to do as a community of faith, that we want to do, in our individual, faith communities, rely on us having access to money so that we can control, the politics, so to speak. We can control, what laws are catered to us, and what things that we have our, politicians that are in office, the causes that they champion. I think this is probably the third time in the last month that I've talked about that specific topic, and I think it's a topic that we don't talk about enough, especially as women and especially as people of faith. We hide behind our faith instead of, leading with it. Our faith, I know as a Muslim woman, my faith informs every single decision that I make in my life. No, I'm not going out wearing, and wanting to be, help everyone and say, hey, this is do this, do this, do this. This is the religion for you. No, I'm not going out preaching to anyone. I'm just going out being, my best self. And if, what I say or, what they see in me of Islam speaks to their heart and they, want to, further their, Islamic education, great. If not, I pray that I encourage you to be your best self, whatever that is, right? Whatever that looks like for you. So, going back to the conversation and to the topic of this week's episode and how what I just said, plays a part. How do you know it's time to quit? When I knew it was time for me to quit in 2017 is because the desire to pursue my goals and the desire to see the what if manifest was greater than the desire to stay the same, the desire to continue on the same path and the trajectory that I was on, which was a path that had no risk, which was a path that, I would, skate by in life. And, yes, I would, have the nice house, the nice car, and, my kids would go to nice schools and, all of that. But there was no, I want more of this, or I want to pursue this. And what if I go down this road that's less traveled? And yes, it's hard. And yes, I don't know what's going to happen, but the desire and the need to see, what happens if I go down that path was greater than me staying in my, cushy office, in my, glass office, glass windows and everything, and beautiful office. It was greater than that for me. And so many women I spoke to in 2020 lost their full or a portion of their income as a result of the pandemic. The job they relied on was no longer there to help her provide for her family. Some relied on public assistance, others on unemployment, the kindness of strangers, or all of the above. While many others thrived in their jobs during COVID, many business owners who had solid processes and a viable product thrived and saw unprecedented revenues during the pandemic. Many didn't. The ones who thrived had the right product, the right processes in place at the right time. You must know that this was not luck. This was consistent effort and knowing when to seize the opportunity when it presented itself. Again, the question, should I return to work or quit? If you're looking for an answer, I'm going to give you one, but ultimately it's up to you. You should return to work and ensure you have a strong plan to ensure you increase your rainy day fund. Some of you thought I was going to say, no, dive into entrepreneurship. No. Return to work and again, ensure you have a strong plan to increase your rainy day fund. Participate in more, not only participate, but create more income generating activities. No more relying on just your 9 to 5 income. We have seen how fast that can be taken away. Take time to make money that works for you. So if you're returning to work soon, it's time to create your plan now. And I mean right now. Budget what you would need to start your business and how you can work full time at work and part time in your business. Create that schedule. Create what that looks like for you without burning out. Ensure that you put that self care time onto the calendar as well. Make sure you're taking time out for your family, on a daily basis, or you have, an appointment with them. Make a date, with your children. Make a date with your spouse, whatever the scenario. And working, if you need to, work full time and then part time in your business until you can make it your full time, if that's your plan. So again, work your full time job, make time for your part time, time in your business, right? Until you can make it full time, if that's your plan, if that's what you want. As a female thought leader in business empowerment and education, I know that down economies are the perfect time to start or grow an existing business. I also know, simply put, that knowledge is key to helping more people do more. My goal through every podcast episode, IG post, or video, etc., is to give women more access to the knowledge, the know how, the skills to be able to pursue not only their goals in entrepreneurship, but to learn how changing her mindset on faith and finances will create the mindset shift that will change her economic status, and that change in economic status also changes everything and everyone else in her life. The education space is changing, growing, and people are beginning to see the value of specialty and niche online courses by coaches, strategists, and everyday people who have been successful in business. Even college and universities are offering, like coursework that you can take as, a solo entrepreneur or as a business owner. And I think, it's to be commended. I'm so proud of what the 15-week Build Your Boss Biz grant program that I created has been able to do for the first cohort of women who joined the program back in January. We changed the version from a 13-week course to now the 15-week course that it is. And so our second cohort, which started June 4th, is able to, join, a comprehensive program that takes them from point A to Z. We have business owners that have been in business a day, may not have even started, up to businesses that have been in business for 5 or 10 years, but need, as a result of what happened in 2020, where brick and mortar store locations closed, they need to make that pivot in their business. So in the event, God forbid, Allah forbid, that we go into a situation like we faced in 2020 again, they are able to still make an income, and a viable income, from their business. So, our second cohort started June 4th, and we're so looking forward to what this group of women will be able to produce. If you're interested in learning more, head over to the Boss Hijabi Society website, and you can access it by clicking or typing in www.bosshijabi.society.com and looking for our 15-week Build Your Boss Biz grant program. I look forward to seeing you live for week 2 should you decide to come on with us. And this week, week 2, we will begin brainstorming new business and products ideas for our current participants. I really want to thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I pray that it was a benefit. And I also pray that you put, you know, what I've talked about into action, that you take out that journal, you take out that notebook, you put that pen to paper, and you begin to create your plan. Yes, work your 9 to 5, sis. If you are in business, time to take it up, that next notch, right? Whatever your scenario is, it's time to, put your foot on the gas and take it up a notch and go to that next level. My inspirational quote of the week: as the old axiom goes, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he eats for a lifetime. But teach a woman to fish, and everyone eats for a lifetime. As I said in my book, Pray and Grow Rich, A Faith Choice, when you look to history and find a successful society, look to the women of that society. Where the women thrived, the society thrived. Jazakallah khair for listening. Peace and assalamu alaikum. This has been another spectacular episode of Boss Hijabipreneur, brought to you by BUNHD LLC and the Not Without My Hijab stage play. To find out more about services for women of faith in business and the next city up on the tour, visit www.bunhd.com. It is our hope here at BUNHD that after each episode, you will be empowered to have a deeper connection in your spirituality, personal, and business relationships. As women of faith, we have a responsibility to learn our religion, apply it to our daily lives, and to make a positive contribution in our local and global community.